What is up? Welcome back to another CMT Lunch Hour. I am Larry Thompson, aka Hostile Charts. Like to bring the charts, like to bring the hostility. As you can see, CMT Lunch Hour, I am your resident chartered market technician. And so we'll be diving into some charts today, as always, going through the price action from this past week, right? So this kind of overview of what we'll be doing today. I'll be doing a little breadth discussion, right? I think breadth is underrated. Make sure you get your Tic Tacs chat, right? And because it's really a market of stocks. It's not just a stock market, right? The S&P 500 is pretty heavily concentrated. And so on the surface of the S&P 500, you might get a different story than what's occurring under the surface. And the beauty of the approach that we use using technicals is we can peel back the onion, look at those individual names, and see what's taking place to understand the market environment we're in, right? So just like anyone else does, if it's raining outside, I'm probably not trying to do a street race, right? So it's the same thing. Is it raining? What's the weather look like for the market? And then we dictate what we want to wear, what trades we want to put on. I also want to shout out to the homies, right? The home builders, home stocks in general tend to be pretty indicative for the market and what the market might do. And then, of course, chart requests, right? So chat, once we get going, I want you to blast the chat with tickers. Just send me tickers. We'll take as much time as we need to go through all the individual setups that people have. Y'all been sending some good charts, honestly. I've been taking some trades actually from them. I have a few that I'll highlight next week based on some of the charts you guys have given. And then, of course, at the end, I will be sharing my favorite setups. And so stick around for that at the end. So yeah, let's get into it here. Let's start with this breadth discussion around the market of stocks, right? So looking here at the S&P 500, we have new highs minus new lows, right? So some people might tell you, well, you should look at something more broad like the NYSE or the NASDAQ composite. Well, they look the same at the moment. And so what I want to highlight here is one, what this data shows, two, how you should interpret it, right? So this is the lesson for the day, and then we'll blast through some charts. Looking at the S&P 500, this top panel here, right, is S&P 500 new highs. This bottom panel here is new lows. And then this middle panel we're looking at is new highs minus new lows, right? So when it's positive, that means net new highs, right? And then when it's negative, it means net new lows, right? So highs out minus lows. And this is on a daily basis for about the past 6 months, right? Actually, this is a little bit over a year here. So what I want to highlight here is the muted activity we see in new highs and new lows, right? So you can see all of 2024, the market ripped, right? Great year to be in the market, right? Buy any type of dips. There really wasn't any dips. And we started this year, as you can see, muted new highs minus new lows. So what does this tell us, chat? So we know that new lows are contracting, but we also see up here that new highs aren't really expanding at all. So what that means is that stocks that are close to breaking out to all-time highs aren't, and stocks that are close to breaking down to new lows aren't, right? We're just kind of chopping. And you can get all that information just from this single chart. That's the beauty of breadth, is we can look at one thing and understand what the market of stocks is doing. And then, of course, right, we go into the market to understand it. So looking at this chart, I would say, you know what, it's probably mixed market, right? There's probably stocks that are close to breaking down that are bouncing, and stocks that are close to breaking out that are not breaking out. And so it's a choppy market. So in that environment, we might want to be a little more selective with our trades. We might want to take smaller positions, which that's what this game is about, right? You want to manage risk in situations, right? Super Bowl this weekend in the red zone, right? We don't want to do what Russell Wilson and the Seahawks did, right? When we have Marshawn Lynch in the backfield and throw the football. Bad awareness of the situation you're in. So you want to be aware of that situation you're in. Let's take a look here. Healthcare. Perfect example of why the market isn't making new lows, right? Healthcare close to breaking down to start the year, right? And then look, it's ripped back up to its 200-day moving average, had this mean reversion, and now we're at this 148 level where, right, is this bullish? Sure, it's helping the market, it's rotation, but like it hasn't broken out yet, right? It just recovered, right? It took a punch and it got off the mat. It hasn't started swinging back. And so this is what we're seeing a lot of underneath the surface, which is not how I trade. I tend to be a trend trader. Look at material, same thing, right? Started the year, was about to break down, didn't, right? Just had this nice move up and recovered, and now it's kind of in this no man's land, right? This was a great short last year if you took it, but now it's in this no man's land. And that's what we're seeing in the market. A lot of no man's land. Real estate, same thing, right? Kind of had this false breakdown and then recovered, but it's not going anywhere. It's just chop, chop, chop. And it's the worst sectors bouncing. Like, we're not seeing follow through yet. And so it's just one of the things we want to note. So on the downside, we're not seeing follow through, but we're also not seeing upside follow through. That's where you get muted new highs minus new lows. Looking at communication services, one of the sectors that's holding up the best, right? Because of Meta, right? Everyone's seen what Meta's done the past 13 days. I think it was up 13 days in a row. But now we're seeing today that it's starting to maybe not break out here, right? So you're not going to see expansion in the new highs list because breakouts aren't working. Either way, breakdowns and breakouts aren't working. What's working right now is chop, right? Slap chop. That's what's working in the market. Looking at financials here, right? This is a trade that we put on a while ago, and we really liked it. Kind of showing here how we took this trade, right? Just initially how we kind of took this trade is we saw this whipsaw, lower low, higher low. We got in, and then right now we're breaking out, but right, we're starting to stall a little bit. That's not necessarily bearish, right? But it's just not overly bullish. So that's what the price action we're seeing in the market. Look at consumer discretionary. Great example of stocks that broke out that are failing to follow through, right? You see this in the consumer discretionary space right now. And so from a holistic level, the market is choppy, right? And we saw that from breadth. Looking at technology, right? Look at XLK, chop, 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 chop. People are getting chopped up in this type of environment. And so it's just one of these things that you can look at this single chart, understand that new highs and new lows are limited. Realize that people that are cherry picking data, like cherry picking new highs, cherry picking new lows, they're cherry picking. As a whole right now, the market is just muted in terms of new highs minus new lows. And then when we actually go to the individual chart of the market, we see it, right? What do we see here? 610 as resistance, 580 as support. We see a base building, right? Long-term uptrend above the sloping upward 200-day moving average. But look at this bottom panel, ADX line, right? 14. ADX line 14, chat. Like, I don't know if the chat's familiar with the ADX line, but Wells Wilder, chat, when you free up, Wells Wilder, Google him. He has a great book written about ADX line and kind of trend following and how to identify a strong trend. And what we see in this bottom panel is ADX line declining, meaning the strength of the uptrend is getting weaker. Right? And so what's that lead to? That leads to trend following methods not working really well. So it's just something we want to be aware of, chat. The market's a little choppy from an index level. Yes, there's going to be individual charts that work. So like I said, pound, blast the chat with tickers because I'll be running through those here in a few minutes. But just kind of wanted to highlight the choppy nature of the market right now. You see it here. So anything that occurs between 580 and 610, the Trump tariffs, right? I don't know what else is going on in the world, right? Chiefs win the Super Bowl, Philly wins the Super Bowl, whatever happens, I don't know. Kanye West posts some crazy pics again. You know, Bill Belichick's dating 23-year-old women, right? Whatever happens, it's noise until we either get a breakdown below 580 or a breakout above 610. So in this type of market right here, guys, I'm like nibbling positions, right? I'm not really doing too much until we get that breakout because I would be willing to buy at 610, knowing we're going to 620, then buy at 605 and have no idea whether or not we're actually going to break out. So patience during this time of year, right? Down here in South Carolina, the weather's starting to get nice. So I'm just getting outside a little bit more, not trying to take so many trades because you got to know the environment you're in, and it's not always smooth sailing, despite what your favorite perma bull or perma bear might say. Last chart I'll highlight before I kind of get into some chart requests. Like I said, chat, pound the chat with some tickers, is Bitcoin, right? What do you guys think of Bitcoin, right? So I hear all the time online that it's going to break out, that it's in a strong uptrend. I hear other people saying that it's about to break down and something about the money supply. But when you actually look at the Bitcoin chop, I think they're both wrong, right? I think the bulls are wrong and the bears are wrong. Who's winning here? No one. No one's winning here, right? It's a tie. We hate ties in America, right? Ties is for soccer players, not for American football, right? We're not about that tie life. We know the Super Bowl is going to have a winner. Right now, it's a tie. Bulls and bears are tied. And so this chop we're seeing here is from the context of an underlying uptrend, but it's also kind of normal in February. New presidency, right? All this stuff in the market is actually noise until we get a resolution either above this 107.5 level or below this 90 level. So like I said, you're just going to have to be patient in this market, wait for the right trade, because right now the pond isn't full with fish, right? The pond's kind of full with just a bunch of sticks that people are pulling out. So seeing this time frame, we just want to wait for those upside resolutions. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at the market as a whole right now. And like I said, right above, we get above 610. I like it long. We break below 580. I'll be reassessing, but we got to get above that 610 level, right? And I think today, right, Chad, if you look at the market, I think the market's struggling, right? Like I haven't had a chance to dig in too deep today, but look at that. We got to the top of the range and we're struggling, right? So that's kind of what you're going to see. You're going to see this back and forth action in the S&P 500 until we resolve higher. So you just have to be patient with this stuff, right? Don't give up on your game plan, right? Don't be mad if you're not making money. There's periods of time when you won't make money in a trading plan. And last thing I just want to highlight is this is the S&P 500 new highs minus new lows, right? So this is something you want to keep an eye on. And I'll be posting this on StockTwits. I'll be posting it on Twitter. So reach out. I can also send you a link to kind of how to fit this chart for your own preferences, or if you want to do an individual market sector and things like that. All right, chat. So that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. I'm just kind of seeing a messy market. I'm seeing stocks not break down. I'm not seeing stocks break out, but right, all of this within the context of an underlying uptrend. There is some individual stocks working right now. Financials look great, right? But as a whole, I'm kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting for some of these resolutions to occur because it's messy, and that's okay. So let's kind of dive in here to some tickers, some of the chart requests. Chat is starting to pop off. So, first one we got here is SMCI, Supermicro Computer. I will share my screen and we'll get cracking. All right, chat. All right. SMCI, right? Good looking chart here. Psych. SMCI is an interesting name, right? Hard to trade, but if you got in yesterday, what did they do? Did they report earnings? I'm sure that's what kind of caused some of this movement. Yeah, I'm not sure what's causing the movement, chat. Chat, let me know what's causing the movement right here in SMCI. But I would say you were catching a falling knife until recently. So zooming out a little bit, we can kind of see when we look at this chart, right? This area here is where a lot of support and resistance sits. A lot of stock changing hands. This is the volume by price, right? So we can kind of see here, this is kind of your level. This $30 is your level on the longer term time frame, right? If you got in down here, congrats. But it looks like we're over here trying to make a higher low, which is huge, right? So that's the first step we want to see is we want to see something that's going down, stop going down, and then we want to start to see it make some higher lows. So we're starting to see that here. So chat, this is a name I would actually keep an eye on because I remember sentiment around this name has gotten pretty bad, and I'm one of those, right? Like it looked terrible for a while, but this recovery here is looking good. And I think when there's stuff around accounting and accounting scandals, everyone tends to get out because no one knows that much about accounting. So it's just one of those things you just get out of the market. There's better and easier trades out there, and there was. But once the market gets choppy, right, there might not be better trades. So you might see people get into these names that they weren't in because Mag 7 was working so well. And Mag 7, is kind of chopping sideways right now. So against this $30 level, chat, this is a good looking chart, right? So this is a W for the chat on this longer term time frame. But let's actually just zoom in on it, right? Let's take a look at this daily chart. Okay, so we're starting to get back above the 200 day, which is good to see here, right? Getting back above the 200 day is a start, but we have a declining 50-day moving average. And so what we want to see here, chat, is we just want to manage risk in these types of trades, right? We saw the longer term chart. Shorter term, you kind of have this higher low here, and then we're getting over this $33 level. I would just manage risk against 30. If you like it long, that's kind of where I would manage risk against. Once again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, stocks that were breaking down or failing to break down. So I don't know if this is just a strong bounce or if there's something else in play here. So Like I said, I don't know that. And honestly, no one knows that, right? Someone can read a news article and then create a story from it, but no one really knows why the move is occurring. And so I would just manage risk against 30 here. I think this is a good rebound in this name. And if you like it on that longer term time frame, maybe you add a little position and then add on the way up as it kind of continues to work. But good chart from the chat. I like that name. Okay, let's take a look at BBAI. Big Bear AI Holdings. Holy shit. This thing up 100% this week? Chat, did you guys get into this before or after the move? Let me know. Because I would have liked to, you guys should have sent this to me last week, right? We should have been talking about this chart last week. It looks like there's the meat of the move has occurred. But you know what we like here, chat, right? It's not that complicated for me, right? You find these psychological levels like $5. You find where volume and support is, right? It was sitting below all this volume and support. And so what did it do? It chopped sideways. Coincidence? Probably not, right? Because humans, it's not coincidental how humans interact with things, right? We've been the same way for a long time. Fear and greed, right, drive the market, right? Everyone's favorite aunt and uncle texting them when the market's going up, right? It's kind of how it works. It's human nature. So that's what price charts allow us to do, is really just understand that human nature that's taking place. So keep sending in the charts, chat. I'm just documenting this one up. BBAI, I don't know what you do here, if I'm being honest, chat. So like, if you look at it this perspective, the trade that I would have taken already happened at $5, right? Like I would have gotten long at $5. It's easy for me to say be long against $5, but what does that really mean? Like if you go long now, that gives you a 40, it could get cut in half, right? So this is a harder position on this longer term time frame to kind of take a look at. I would probably set a trailing stop with maybe a chandelier exit or some type of ATR of the moving average here. But just in general, like the move happened from like my perspective. If you zoom in, right, we see exactly what we're talking about. Look at that. You think it's a coincidence? As soon as it gets over $5, it breaks out. Is that just a coincidence or is that human behavior? Right? I don't think it's a coincidence. Even if it is, if we can make money from it, who cares? But look, right? So good. These are the types of trades you want to be looking at before the move occurs. But how do you know when the move occurs? But awesome if you guys got into this. I don't know how you get long at this point, right? Because like I said, you're going to get cut in half here. If you're already long, set some type of volatility moving average, trailing stop. If you guys don't know how to do that, I'll just give you guys a quick inside baseball. You can come down here, type in chandelier exit, right? And so what this does is it takes the average ATR for the past 22 days, right? And then takes three moves of that. And so right now, right, your trailing stop is broken out because it's on a breakout stage. So the trailing stop is really tight. It's at 668, right? So 668. We're looking at, right, 22% downside, but it's very volatile. So if that's something you like, I would use some type of volatility, moving average, volatility band type of trailing stop to kind of manage this position. But chat, hey, W's in the chat today as a whole, right? These are some good looking charts. You guys are getting it. You're getting these base breakouts, right? And they're working in some of these smaller names. These names aren't components of the S&P 500, which we were looking at earlier, but right? There's always a bull market somewhere, especially for these stock pickers, right? Good looking name, chat, right? So what is this? RXT, Rack Space Technology, right? What types of racks is it working on? Do we know? Let's kind of check out what's Rack Space Technology do, right? Like what's that even mean, huh? Let's take a quick look and see what Rack Space Technology means. Multi-cloud technology services company. Multi-cloud. Okay, so it's storing stuff in the clouds. Shout out to the clouds storing all our stuff, dude. That's just awesome. I love that the clouds can do that. They're pretty neat. But yeah, RXT, right? $2.91 stock, $600 million market cap. I like this base, right? This is something we want to keep an eye on. What do you see here? A lot of chop where all this volume is. That's what we talk a lot about here. Right, so against this 290 $3 area, actually. Like $3, we get above $3, it's game on. Especially from this longer time frame. Chat, right? Like, look at this. You got this base looking thing. Someone in the chat might ask, like, it's not a perfect base. It's kind of a double bottom. I don't get caught up in patterns a lot, right? I've studied the patterns. I have the books behind me, got the license, right? Pattern is more just the recognition of what the character of price is. So all a base is doing is it's showing you that it's moved from a downtrend to making higher lows, right? Which is a trend reversal. And then it's on at the case of breaking out, right? That's all it's highlighting. And what tends to happen is the fundamental guys will get in around here, right? Fundamental guys, here, let me just mark this one up as an example. Fundamental guys might start to get in here, right? Get in here, 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 start to average into the position in the downtrend, right? Because they either know something, right, about this business, or there's a valuation, but what they need to wait for to actually make their money is a catalyst. And how do we do that, right? How we do that is via just waiting for the breakout, because we use price, right? They're using financial statements. They're using all this other information. We're using price, right? And then what happens is they get that good dollar cost average basis, and this breaks out, right? And a lot of them either might start to sell their position when we're buying. So we're buying here, right? This is a great looking chart, right? So we're buying here, looking for that resolution higher in this base. So I really like this name. This is a good looking chart, chat. Like, it has that reversal pattern that we like to see, has this base, and this is on the zoomed out chart. So from a longer term perspective, I really like this pattern. So these are just great looking charts from the chat. RXT, let's zoom in real quick. Okay, let's look at the daily price action. See, what did I say? I said this, right? This upper range about $3. So we might want to wait for that breakout if we're not already long the name, right? You might want to wait here. That's where I would get long against this level. We have that base, right? Because the market's fractal, right? The market's like one of those Russian dolls, right? It's stacks on top of each other, right? The same exact image. So the daily and the weekly charts look similar, right? So that's what we see here. Good looking base. W for the chat. Whoever shared this, shout out. Shout out to sharing this one. It's a good looking name. All right, chat, let's go to the next one. MGOL. You guys are sharing some good charts. See, now we have some shit, right? That's what happens. 2 in a row that are good, and then, right? Start sharing stuff like this. Chat, we're not trading this, right? Like, we're not degenerates. If you're at the casino in Vegas, sure, right? Maybe you have some fun in a name like this, but not something I'm trading. MGOL, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know. Are you some expert gap candle trader? Maybe, right? Odds are you're probably not, and this is just something that's moving a lot. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with this. If you're in it, I'm not in it. I'm never going to be in it. But if this is something you're in, I'd probably manage risk here, right? If you got 100% move in a day, I'd probably feed the ducks, because then you're going to run into oversupply here, and then there's a huge supply zone here, right? Everyone who's in this name is going to end up selling in this area. So you're probably going to get whacked. Not something I like to look at. You know, a broken clock is right twice a day, and this is just a broken clock. So hopefully I'm wrong. I hope you get rich. And then if you get rich, come into the comments and call me some names. I'd love to see that. So that's an L from the chat. Let's not be sharing those types of names. Gorilla Tech. Shout out. Great looking chart, right? Especially from that longer term perspective. You have this base, right? You do have some overhead supply here, but I think a lot of the volumes come in on the long side as this is kind of started to break out here. So that's not something I'm overly concerned with, but let's just zoom in, right? So this is kind of your level here. Let's do like a year and a couple months, because I'm sure, yeah, exactly, right? Exactly what I wanted to show. That's your risk level there, right? Risk level, resistance, resistance, popped, turned into support here on this chart. So chat, you guys are looking in the right spaces, right? You can see all these AI tech names, this AI space as a whole. These names are the ones that a lot of people have an eye on. So this is what we like to see. Once again, if I'm being honest with you, from a daily perspective, I don't know. You'd have to, if you add here, right, you have 28% downside, but these are volatile names, right? 11% in a day. That's what you're going to tend to get. So if you're in this, once again, I'd probably just set a trailing stop in this type of name. One thing I'll also highlight here, chat, just looking at this chart, is RSI, right? I talk a lot about like RSI levels, right? As a trend follower, we can use RSI as a regime indicator instead of as a oscillator for mean reversion. So see how once the uptrend starts, RSI stays above 50. You see this, chat? And so what that tells us is during this pullback that we had, right? We had a pretty strong pullback. RSI stayed above 50, which means the bulls kept control. And then what did you have? You had that serve as a launch pad. So in the future, when you're looking at these types of setups, just see how RSI is acting, right? If it's staying above 50, the bulls are in control. And you can look at this as support, right? Especially when you have this key level. So it just kind of lines it up for you. And maybe instead of selling here, you added some extra exposure. So that's a little nugget to the chat. Kind of take a look at this type of setup from that perspective. But GRRR, great looking chart from the chat. I like this name. I'm going to keep this one actually on my radar. I'm going to save it. Someone said Palantir. I mean, I don't know what to do with this, right? It's kind of made its move, up 39% this week. I will give just a quick 2-second lesson in this chart. When should we have been buying it, right? Obviously, the answer is at $10 or whatever. But if you weren't even in there, right, you guys know the setups we like here, right? We love these base breakouts. And guess what we got? Especially when all the volume is below, right? So I started accumulating this around $14. I would be lying if I said I'm still fully in that position, because I'm not. Everyone else that is, congrats, right? Send me a photo of you on your yacht. But that's what we saw here, right? We saw this base breakout. You even could have gotten in here, right? Because you actually tend to have a little bit more resistance at that level, at that $30 level. And then you would just set a trailing stop. And chat, this is also why I set trailing stops. Great example is Palantir, because I don't want to limit the upside of my investments based on some valuation model or some distance from a moving average. I want price to get me out. I want it to pull back and get me out. Because if not, right, you might get out too early in a name like this. And I did, right? Because guess what I didn't do? Use a trailing stop. I doubled my money and was like, let me get out. So that's the thing with the market, is when you use some trend following systems, you got to let price get you out, because if not, right, you miss out on something that you were in before and it bites you in the butt. And if I threw a rock outside right now to a group of investors, right, I'd hit any one of them that I hit would have a story about a stock they sold too early because they didn't let price get them out. So that's my lesson with Palantir today. I don't know how the hell you like trade this at this moment, right? 39% in a week. It's not my style to kind of get in when something's up that much, but you had this power gap breakaway, right? So you could have, this chart is a little, right? You had this power gap breakaway here against 85, right? And then maybe against this $98, $100 level, that's where you manage your risk against. But in general, it's not my type of pitch, like at this point, right? Congrats to those that are in. Hope you guys make a lot of money, but not my type of trade. So chat, you guys are doing great. Keep them coming. I really like that. I like that we're taking a look at a lot of this AI space names and the bases within it. I think those are really good setups that we can see. QBTS is the next one. Okay, D-Wave Quantum. All right, so kind of see here some overhead supply. It's kind of running into this overhead supply level from a weekly chart perspective. So it's probably against this $5 level. Look, lines up pretty well, $5. That's probably where I would manage risk against, right? I talk a lot about managing risk, but I've kind of learned it's like key to staying in this game and doing this a long time, right? I started in the market in 2017 as like more involved, right? Been in it longer than that, but being more involved, and it was an easy year. But once I learned like a stock can go down 50% and then go down another 50 and another 50 and stayed in some of those names, I just learned, nah, I gotta manage risk. So I'd manage risk against $5 here. And you can see on this RSI, it's staying above this level. So if you have conviction in this name, I think you could be adding positions here, especially how it's kind of trading sideways, just like the market. It's not really breaking down significantly in any way. It kind of shakes some people out. So on the longer term time frame, against $5, if you're in this name, I wouldn't shy away from it. Zooming in a little bit, right? It's going to be a little bit tougher, but you can kind of see here we're at a crux position, right? Once again, I'm not like a voodoo pattern guy, right? I think technical analysis is about understanding price behavior and market participants. I don't think it's about the memorization of patterns. I think we just learn, right? Once we get to this critical point, right? The buyers and sellers are trying to understand price and waiting for price discovery. So here you just have this triangle, pennant, whatever you want to call it. And I think if you're convicted in this name, right, that's where you kind of would have the resolution. Would be hopefully to the upside because the underlying trend is up, right? Strong 200-day, the red, right? And the 20 and the 50-day are kind of in line here. So I would look for the resolution, right? Maybe we get above 6 and then I would start getting long. But if this is something you like more longer term, right, you could probably start adding now. And then if we break below that $5 mark here, right, it's a tight stop, but this position is coiled. So in those types of positions, you can have the benefit of having tight stops, and that'll let us know when to get out of the market. The analogy I always tell people is like, if you're on a hike, would you rather know you're going in the wrong direction 1 mile or 2 or 10 miles in? So with these types of trades, you can know you're wrong pretty quickly, which allows you to save that moolah, right? Risk management. So good looking chart from the chat. QBTS, shout out, right? D-Wave Quantum, another name I'm going to save, and we'll come back to and see if it actually resolves higher next week. Levi, L-E-V-I. Levi Strauss. Okay, so let's zoom out for a minute. Let's take a look at the zoomed out chart. See, I don't love it. Chat, tell me what you love about this name. Tell me what people like about Levi. I don't see a trade here, right? If you're in the clothing space, the retail space, a lot of them kind of got whacked this week. Nike, Deck, a name I really like. Chat, I've highlighted Hoka's before. I have a ton of pairs. Got whacked, right? It's down like 20% from all-time highs in a week after earnings. I don't see this retail trade right here as one I'd want to be in. Levi, though, right? Think of Westerns, right? You think of Westerns, you think of boots. I think of boots, I think of Boot Barn, right? So Boot Barn is actually one, right? Also getting whacked. But this space in general right now is not where I'm seeing a ton of great setups. But Boot Barn was one I did like, once again, kind of struggling. So if you're in that, if you like Levi because of, you know, the theme of like maybe Western or people moving to Colorado, blah, 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 maybe look at Boot, right? I think Boot is just a better looking chart overall. You might start to find support here, but Levi, I just don't see a trade in it at the moment, right? Maybe you're a short-term guy. Let me look at a shorter term chart of Levi. Let's look at this daily chart of Levi. Yeah, I don't see much here. Right, not the type of thing I want to see, right? Just kind of messy, kind of, right, all over the place a little bit to some degree. And that's the beauty of the market, right? It's not like baseball. Baseball, you only get a limited pitch count. We get unlimited pitch count here as long as we manage risk. I don't really know what to do with this, but if it's something you like, I'd be accumulating here. If you have some long-term thesis or fundamental perspective, I would be accumulating, but not something I'm interested in as a whole. So chat, I respect it, but I don't really see a trade in it at the moment. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not going to give you a trade I don't have, right? I think that's big. Magnite, shout out chat for this one. Magnite, beauty, 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 beauty. Look at that base, right? Let's highlight this base. right? That Kim K base. Look at that $20 level, right? You think it's a coincidence it's finding that against $20? Coincidence? Probably not, right? Probably not a coincidence that that $20 level that was support from a long time ago turned into support again, right? Was resistance at some point during this process. Because what happens is these stocks break down, and then you have people, right, individual fund managers, right, who are trying to either get out at a good price on the way down, right? They realize, shit, this is struggling. And then you have some other people who are maybe bottom pickers, right? Or people who understand that the fundamental story of this business is changing, right? And then we're able to see that here on this chart. We're able to see the fundamental picture is probably changing for this company, right? They might be now in an earnings uptrend versus an earnings trough or vice versa. But against $20, this is a great looking chart. This might be my favorite chart I've seen today, chat. So shout out to the chat for this one. Chat getting W's. Keep sharing the tickers, but chat, I like this name. Magnite against this $20 level. That's a trade. That is a trade, right? A little extended at the moment, but I think it can find. I think it's it just broke out today, and I think it's probably because, right, something related to earnings or something like that. There was a fundamental shift in the story that price showed us, right? Price showed us this fundamental shift before it even occurred. So you could have probably even got in back here at 15 and then had this little dip. So price is the leading indicator of these transitional stories, of these trend changes, right? Want to talk about another, just to give you guys a quick example of that. Meta, right? Everyone hated Meta, and then it recovered, and then we heard the story about, right? We were able to then learn, right, once price got back up here, but it was already recovering. Right, once price got back up here, we learned, oh, you know, Zuckerberg now has the fresh haircut. You know, there's no AI ramifications with Meta, right? So the story follows price after it occurs, right? So it's just something to highlight there with that MGNI chart. Great looking chart. Let's take a look here at NBIS real quick. Oh, I don't know what this is doing, chat. I don't know what this is, right? Like, I don't know what's going on with price here. Was it delisted and then relisted? I don't know. Zooming in, I don't really see a trade here from the chat. I'm not sure about this name. Let me dig into this name, and then I'll have a follow-up next week. NBIS. Let me write that one down, and I will follow up. I don't have any details at the moment, but chart just looks a little odd, so I'll just sit on that one. Zoom, right? Think Zoom has that nice base. Has that nice base, right? You can see here a lot of shares accumulated under this area, right? People think it's going to be a turnaround story, and maybe eventually it will be, but I think I'd wait till $100 to get in this. I just think there's a lot of people who got burned on the way down. I would wait till $100 if you want, right? If you're looking for something that's going to 5, 10, you know, double, triple, right? You have to look at this long-term chart, and you can see there's some overhead resistance here. But if you're just looking for a trade on that daily, right? Looking at this daily, we see the trade, right, chat? Right? It's kind of these levels here, right? It's kind of in this little choppy range, kind of like the S&P, to be honest, just kind of choppy. So I would probably wait for that breakout against 90, right? If it breaks out against 90, you can manage risk against 90. How I actually would probably trade this is, right, I would probably use this low here in the chart. I would probably use that 84, 85 low and go long against that, because a lot of times we have these false breakdowns. But chat, this is good looking on this shorter term time frame. You can get long against 90. And then, right, there's people that have been in this name that want to sell it eventually. But good looking chart overall, though. Zoom, I dig it. I'm going to add that one to the list. And we'll come back and take a look at that in a couple weeks, kind of see if it resolved higher. Cart. Let's take a look at Cart real quick. Maple Bear, beautiful chart from the chat, right? W's chat. Y'all are fucking crushing it today with these W's. Right, kind of have this base looking pattern here. Like I said, I don't get caught up in the patterns. You know what's funny too? You've probably seen this over and over again. I've highlighted it, right? Look at this $50 level, right? Humans are humans, right? Human psychology is a real thing. And that's why technical analysis works, because price is just the data visualization of that human behavior. And once you study it, you can't unsee it, right? People will call it voodoo. They'll call it what they want. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you study the back test and learn the ins and outs, it's hard to unsee it. It's hard to manage risk a better way than technical analysis. It's hard to scale a skill set the same way you can scale the skill set of technical analysis. So beautiful chart here, chat. Love cart. Right. There we go. Look at that. Base, breakout, base, probably going to break out again. So W's from the chat today. All these Chiefs fans in the chat, I hope. Pulling for the Chiefs this weekend. Pulling for the Chiefs and cart, right? That's a trade. Long Chiefs, long Maple Bear. What's Maple Bear do? Let's take a quick peek. Because, you know, some people care about that stuff. Actually, I care about that stuff. Instacart. Shout out Instacart. I think they've partnered with Costco. My wife's getting stuff from Costco via Instacart. So good looking chart, right? Qs. Someone said the Qs. Messy. Rewatch the beginning. Whoever said the Qs, rewatch the beginning of this video, and I talk through the broader market. But it's messy, man. It's messy right now, right? Like, it's been a mess. This is like, what is this? What would you call this, chat? Like, who's made money trading this? No one is the answer. No one is making money right now in this, right? They'll lie to you, right? They'll tell you they bought here, sold. No one's making money in this, but underlying trend is up. And what do we have here? We have a basing pattern occurring, right? But we got to resolve higher, right? We haven't resolved higher, right? We got to break this down channel, right? So it's a little bit messy right now. I think there's probably better trades on a shorter term perspective, but hey, we make this all-time high. I think you have to wait for all-time highs though. Like I said, go back to the beginning of this video. I break down new highs minus new lows. I think we have to be patient, not selling, right? Like if you're long, right, in your longer term account, I wouldn't be selling here. Honestly, if in your longer term account, right, just let it keep buying, right? Just every time you get paid, let it buy. But from a trade perspective, I think there's easier trades out there, right? Manage risk against 500, but this is it's just a little messy. That's okay, right? Doesn't mean I don't like it, right? Right? My sister's a little messy. I still love her, but just right now, I'm not in it. Just don't see the edge here right now. But like I said, go back to the beginning of the video. I highlight kind of my overall view of some of the market action right now, but basically slap chop, right? Just chop, 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 chop. People getting chopped to death. ASTS Mobile chat. Someone put this in the chat last week, and this is one of the names I really liked here. So give me 1 second. I will pull it up because I already have it saved because someone sent it to me last week, and I'll highlight the levels we drew last week. Boom. This is a chart we shared last week. So, hey, W in the chat, right? We outlined this trade last week. Someone sent it in as a chart request. And I said, you know what? This level here, down here, is where you want to manage risk against this 20, but I liked it long, right? As long as we stayed above here. And look what we did this week. 30, 40% in this name. So, hey, chat, that's a big move. Those are the charts. Those are the trades you want to be taking a look at. Now, right, it's hitting this overhead supply here. But if you have a longer term perspective, maybe you let it pull back a little bit. But other than that, it's pretty choppy. But I did see this week that this level served as support and it rocketed. So I was just pretty happy with that. Happy people in the chat kind of won here. 40% in a week is pretty legit. So shout out to the chat for sharing this name last week. It's a beautiful chart. And that's why I love doing this with you guys, because you guys send over some of the most charts I don't necessarily look at all the time. Because a lot of the client stuff I work on is more bigger, larger cap stuff. So I do appreciate y'all sharing them. Taking a look at Wolf here, it's kind of messy, right? Good day today, but it's kind of back at the bottom of this range here. Here, let me actually, I have a chart of Wolf. Let me pull it up real quick because I have this one actually edited already. Because it's a name I've had on my radar, right? It's a name I think everyone's kind of had on their radar. So this is, right? This was my trade back in the day, and then kind of failed, and now it's back at this level, right? Already marked up, chat. This chart was already marked up with the levels. Already has my little hostile charts handle down here. So yeah, I think if you want to manage risk here, right? If you're looking to add here, this is the place to add. So W to the chat for thinking about this pattern this way, right? We have this polarity level, right? Let's make this one blue, right? No green on my charts. F the Eagles. F the Eagles. No green on these charts, baby. Just red. All right, chat, take a look here, right? Polarity zone against $4 is kind of your level to manage risk against if you want to go long on that longer term time frame. So chat, this is a trade I actually already entered at one point, got stopped out, made a little money, but just a little messy. Let's take a look at the daily real quick. Let's take a look at the daily for Wolf. I also know I have that one marked up. All right, chat. So looking at Wolf, it's kind of in this range, right? That was my level I got out at, right? I haven't re-edited this chart yet, but I kind of got out at this $7 mark. Why? Let's highlight this real quick for the chat. Little inside baseball. What happened? RSI 50 stopped serving as support, right, during this breakdown. And so I knew the bears had a chance to kind of take over momentum here. But when you zoom in, it's kind of choppy, right? Like the rest of the market right now, like Bitcoin in general, right? Like Bitcoin's chopping. What makes you think this thing isn't going to chop, right? Didn't break down, but not breaking out. So it's kind of just meddling in this range. Longer term, good place to add. But shorter term, it's just probably going to chop like the rest of the market. So good one from the chat. I like that one. I take a look at that pretty frequently. But the miners kind of struggle. Someone put bros in the chat. Dutch bros. Shout out to the Dutch. I guess they make good coffee. Sheesh. Is this where all the market cap for Starbucks is going, to these Dutch bros? Bro, what a chart. What a freaking chart. Right? That's wild. Of course I like it, but I just don't know where I would get in at this point. If you're in it, I would just set a trailing stop and forget about it. But beauty. Beauty, 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 right? A little bit extended shorter term, so I probably wouldn't be adding at this moment. But if you get a pullback to 60, I'd add that all day. All day, twice on Sunday, right? That's a name I would be adding there. Dutch Bros, high flyer, beauty, breakout, base breakout, and right, looks like Palantir at 30. Looks at a lot of these bases. So shout out to the chat. You guys really like these bases, and it's a good place to be fishing because, like I said, at the broader market level, things are kind of choppy right now. So these individual stock picker names, it's the time to do it. So shout out to the chat for that one. And then we'll go to Reddit. Reddit. Woo! In hindsight, we all should have bought this, right? We're online all day. We like Reddit as a whole. We should have bought this stock. Just a beauty of an uptrend. Gapped up, hasn't come back. If you like the name, man, I don't know what to tell you. You know, you can get in here and then, you know, try to manage risk to the downside against 200, but it's kind of clear skies in this name. So maybe it's something you just, you know, hold your nose and buy it, right? Especially if you like it longer term. I'm sure its valuation at this point is crazy. But yeah, I mean, chat, if you like this name, you might know more about it than me from that perspective, but it just, I mean, it's a monster, right? Monster chart here. So shout out to the chat. Once again, these are great tickers. Thanks for all the chart requests. I'm going to go back and actually just share a couple highlights that I was talking about earlier, and then I will let you guys go. So let me share my screen again. Right, lunch hour. Just want to talk through this one more time, and then I'll let the chat go. Looking S&P new highs minus new lows. Add this to the list of charts you take a look at on a weekly basis or even a daily basis. What we want to see is we want to see expansion in new highs. We don't have that right now. So the market is just kind of chopping sideways. We want to see that expansion in new highs. That will help this resolve, right? So we're chopping sideways here below 610, above 580. We're building a base, right? But we're trendless, right? It's a mean reversion market at the moment, shorter term, tactical time frame. But like I said, new lows minus new highs, 52-week new lows minus new highs kind of gives you that great view of the market. So you can kind of assess that, because we want to know where to put our money, and we want to know when to be overly aggressive and when not to be, because there's pitches that are fat pitches, and this market right now is not a fat pitch from a shorter term perspective. So we want to wait for this to set up, and that's when I would be executing trades. But right now, right, the names I'm in, it's kind of some boring trades. I'm in gold, I'm in silver, things like that. I'm not in a ton of names because the market's just kind of choppy, right? You look at the Mag 7, it's chopping sideways. The other chart I'll highlight here real quick, right? Let's take a look here at Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's just chopping sideways, and this is just kind of what the market's doing. So we want to wait for these resolutions, have some patience, watch some football this weekend. Once again, shout out to the chat. I think we got through 20 plus tickers today, and we'll continue to do that every week. Just tune in, and next week I'll be going over something new at the beginning. We'll run through chart requests, and then I'll just share my closing remarks. Y'all enjoy the weekend. Follow me at Hostile Charts, right? On Twitter, on StockTwits, both of those platforms. Feel free to message me, DM me, anything you guys like. I love doing this with the team, and go Chiefs!